Now, my family loves an artist, Van Gogh, or I think it's Van Gogh here, right? That's how we say this in Europe, Van Gogh. And Doctor Who had gone back in time, and knowing what happened with Van Gogh, and knowing that he was sad, he wanted to change his future. Now here's what I know about Van Gogh. He's an amazing painter who sold a total of 3 paintings in his life. 3 paintings. 1 to his brother, and 2 to his brother's best friend. He would send paintings home to his mother, who would patch her chicken coop with his paintings. Okay? So that's what's going on in his life. Now, in this clip that I'm going to show you, Doctor Who went back in time, brought Van Gogh to modern times to see the Musée d'Orsay, to let him know the impact that he had had on the world. So, let's roll that video.
Where are we? Paris. 2010 AD, and this is the mighty Musée d'Orsay, home to many of the greatest paintings in history.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Ignore that, I've got something more important to show you.
Take all your chances while you can. Never know when they'll pass you by. Like a song the mathematician cannot solve. Like me, trying my hardest to explain. It's all about your crossing kisses. Those first steps there, I can't calculate.
Bless. We met a few days ago. I was asking about the championship of theirs.
Oh, yes. Glad to be of help. You were nice about my tie.
Yes. And today is another cracker, if I may say so. Well, I just wondered, between you and me, in 100 words, where do you think Van Gogh rates in the history of art?
Well, big question, but to me, Van Gogh is the finest painter of them all. Certainly the most popular, great painter of all time. The most beloved. His command of colour, the most magnificent. He transformed the pain of his tormented life into ecstatic beauty. Pain is easy to portray. To use your passion and pain to portray the ecstasy and joy and magnificence of our world. No one had ever done it before. Perhaps no one ever will again. To my mind, that strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist, but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
That's it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Is it too much?
No, I have tears of joy. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sorry about the beer.
Sorry. That video always impacts me because it shows the difference that one person can make. The effect that this had on a depressed Van Gogh in this fictional scene is seen in the tears in his eyes and the hugging of the museum staff. So let's talk about a hard subject for a moment. the mental health burden in Europe is significant and has worsened since COVID-19 pandemic, with millions experiencing mental health conditions, including anxiety, depression, and substance use disorders. Before the pandemic, 84 million people in the EU suffered from mental health conditions, and these figures have since increased. The total cost of mental health issues in the EU is over 4% of your gross domestic product, which is 600 billion euros annually, encompassing healthcare costs, health systems, productivity loss, and more. And sadly, young people are more at risk. Mental health disorders are particularly prevalent amongst our young, with almost 1 in 5 boys in Europe and over 16% of girls affected by mental health disorders. It is estimated that the prevalence of mental health challenges have risen globally, somewhere between 26 and 28%. This corresponds to 53 to 76 million more people being affected in the last few years than ever before. The observed changes, sadly, are higher for women. In a recent poll, 46% of parents reported that their teenage child had developed a new or worsening mental health condition. 75% said that their child's ability to interact with friends has suffered. As it turns out, texting and social media have proven to be a poor substitute for face-to-face connection. And sadly, the experts believe that the worst is yet to come. The longer stress and trauma continues, the greater the impact. Decades of research document the serious long-term consequences of chronic childhood stress. It can alter the structure of the brain. It can alter the structure of the nervous system. And this impacts learning, memory, decision-making, and more. And then stress can also cause long-term health problems. It can cause the following: feelings of anger, fear, sadness, worry, numbness, or frustration, changes in appetite, energy, desires, and interests, difficulty concentrating and making decisions, difficulty sleeping, or nightmares, physical reactions such as headaches, body pain, stomach problems, and skin rashes, worsening of chronic health conditions, worsening of mental health conditions, and the increased use of tobacco, alcohol, and other substances. As you can see, this is a serious problem affecting everyone from children all the way through adults. So we are seeing a world that's headed for disaster right now. Without intervention, we can see the effects of this for the next 5 and 6 decades. Now that being said, most of us don't feel that. Most of us have good days most of the time. But have you ever had a day where you felt like this? This is Charles Darwin from his journal in 1861. I am very poorly today. I'm very stupid and hate everybody and everything. So, I think all of us wake up some mornings feeling a little bit like Charles, right? Sometimes we have a rough day. I would also like to mention this concept. That is, in medicine, we talk about depression and anxiety, and these are defined illnesses in a reference book that helps us code for a diagnosis. If you meet the criteria defined in this book, then you are diagnosed with a mental illness. Now that's the top up there above the waterline. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. I believe that the general population suffers the mental effects of stress in some degree or another, expressed as feeling anxious on some days or feeling sad on some days. They may not fit the criteria for a diagnosis, but they certainly have some component of this through their week or month. That waterline in that picture is the difference between a diagnosis and a state of mind. So just like in this picture, I believe the bulk of our challenges fall without a diagnosis. I would counter the statistics that I just shared with you earlier simply being the tip of the iceberg. So how many of you in this room, by a show of hands, how many of you in this room know someone that's been suffering with their emotions in the last 2 years? Look around you, right? This may be a child, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a spouse. So what do we do about this? So there's a few things we can do from a lifestyle standpoint. Teaching breathing and mindfulness can help us notice when our emotional thermometers or distress levels have risen so high that we can help calm them with those practices. Another strategy that parents have employed to give kids, including my own children, is to give more exposure to nature. If you know me, you know I love the outdoors. So time outdoors is correlated with fewer behavioral and emotional problems. We need to take breaks from watching, reading, or listening to the news, even if it includes social media. If you do need to watch the news, consider limiting that to just 1 or perhaps 2 times a day. Take care of your body. Make sure you stretch, exercise regularly. Try to eat healthy, well-balanced meals. Avoid excessive alcohol, tobacco, or substance use. Make time to unwind. Try to do some activities that you enjoy. Connect with others. Talk with the people you trust about your feelings and concerns. And yes, men, this includes us, talking about our feelings. Connect with your community or your faith-based organizations. Have a routine. Keep up daily routines as far as possible. Get plenty of sleep, go to bed early, get up early, keep up with personal hygiene. Allocate time for working and time for resting. Now let's talk about social media for a minute. If you're going to be on social media, and this is a personal ask from me, use your accounts to post positive and hopeful stories. There are so many divisive and fearful posts that we need to balance that by spreading hope, love, inclusiveness, and positivity. Help others. If you're able, offer support to help people in your community who may need it. As it turns out, we feel better when we are helping others feel better. And remember that taking care of yourself can better equip you to take care of others. Helping others cope with stress through phone calls or video chats can help you and your loved ones feel less lonely or isolated. Now let's talk about our bodies. We know that our bodies respond to stress fairly universally, and that our systems respond the same whether we're being chased by a tiger in the jungle or we get cut off on the freeway on our commute to work. So when we experience stress, our brain, followed quickly by our body, goes into fight or flight. All of this is controlled by the oldest part of the brain, called the amygdala. This is sometimes called the amygdala hijack. You can see that amygdala right there. That's our amygdala, okay? And what happens, it starts making decisions without checking with the cortex of the brain, that part of the brain that makes us human. Now this is fantastic when I'm in a jungle and the tiger jumps out and I have to make a split-second decision about which path to run down in which the tiger may not follow. However, it's not a great place from which to make wise choices that may have long-term consequences. So let me give you a very simple example. Does anyone in here have teenagers in their home? Okay, or have had teenagers in your home? So fun, right? So fun. We should have a support group. We can talk later, okay? So let me give you this scenario. It's well after midnight. You've been waiting for a teenage son to come home, and he had a midnight curfew. When you've been worried about 12:10 when he didn't arrive, concerned for your son. You started to get a little frustrated at 12:30 when he wasn't home, and then you were really angry at 12:40 when he wouldn't answer his cell phone when you called it, and then when he walked in at 12:50 and casually said, "Oops, I was late again, wasn't I?" You lost it. You raised your voice, you expressed your frustration, and you immediately grounded him for life. Now the next morning, you begin to realize you don't really want him living in your basement for the rest of his life, or your life. You realize that perhaps what you did in the heat of the moment may not have been the best thing for him, or actually for you. So what happened? You made a quick choice, using only your amygdala, which was all hopped up on adrenaline, from your frustration. Okay? And you left that system so that your higher brain could not make a wiser choice. So when your higher brain the next morning started to kick in and you realized, oh, this wasn't a good plan, you had to go back and apologize to your son. To make better choices, we actually need our cerebral cortex to engage and then execute. This is where a higher level of thinking takes place. So I like to think of it this way. The amygdala is like an elephant. It is a large, powerful animal that can take over our actions very easily. When activated and left unchecked, it can actually wreak havoc in our lives. Now the cerebral cortex is that little man sitting on top of the elephant, giving it small cues here and there and helping the elephant move in a more positive direction. So let me switch gears for just a moment and talk about how the brain works. It uses things called cofactors. A cofactor is a substance that helps increase the rate of a chemical reaction. They're like helper molecules, okay? So one category of cofactors is neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are natural chemicals that help facilitate communication between the nerve cells in our brain. So an example of that might be serotonin. Serotonin has a lot of functions in the human body. Most serotonin is made in the GI tract by our microbiome, but it influences mood, impulsivity, anger, and aggressiveness. It's sometimes called the happy chemical because it contributes to us feeling happy and joyful. So therefore, if we lack serotonin, we're sad, all right? Okay. Another neurotransmitter is called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, but GABA for short. This is really important because it has the opposite effect. While serotonin helps us feel up, GABA helps us calm down.